G'day and welcome to David Joshua Ford, episode 115, and on today's show we're taking a look at the Canon C50, a first look. Canon has just announced it about an hour ago, so I just wanted to go over some of the specs and really compare it to the Canon R5C, which is the camera that I've been using for the last 4 years. So we're going to look at the video specs, the photography side of it, how that stacks up, and then a bit more of a close comparison to the R5C, which I think is probably the closest competitor. It sort of is a new line here. If you have any questions as we go along, drop them in the chat. We'd love to hear from them. We talk about video, photography, live streaming. So the C50 is really up my alley of what I'm using to shoot with, as well as to photograph with. So let's take a quick look at this launch video that they have, I'm assuming, shot on the camera as well as showing it behind the scenes. It's really showing that it can be rigged up or rigged down depending on what you need. It's very much focused on video, and then photography is kind of this, capability that it can do. The main thing with photography, I think, is probably it's missing the viewfinder, which if you shoot that way, then that could be a problem. If you don't shoot with a viewfinder, then the photo specs are going to be great and no problem. But I would say the biggest thing here really is the top handle and the mounting. So whereas we needed a cage for the R5C to really sort of house more stuff around the camera, you've got 2 screws on top and then this hot shoe, which can build up and build down depending on what you need. So having this professional full-size XLR audio in the handle, full-size XLR is just so important because it's kind of industry standard just to have XLR, and so if you're having mini adapters all the time, it's just chances are at some point you're gonna be missing an adapter and you can't do it. So the biggest thing for me, I think, is just the audio side of it. Here we've got open gate, so you can use the 3x2 sensor to capture 9x16 as well as 16x9, and I think you can actually shoot to 2 cards. So the CFast Express and SD can shoot 16x9 and 9x16 at the same time. So if you're shooting a video for a longer edit but also want some social footage out of the gate, then here you go. You can shoot both ways. Obviously need to frame up for that because it'll, I'm guessing, take a center crop. The RF mount, if you're picking up a whole lot of RF glass like I have been recently with moving away from EF glass and into RF, it's nice to know that it's not only the RF mount but that it's full frame. I really like having all of my cameras with the same sensor size. It just makes sort of switching around easier and to sort of calculate for, I think, in your head. Photography up to 40 frames burst per second. It's got a full-size HDMI. It's got timecode in and out, XLR, DIN port, tons of stuff. It's also got, I believe there's an Ethernet accessory somewhere. It talks about having Ethernet. So there's remote control ways of using this over Wi-Fi or Ethernet. And it also has the XC protocol, so you could integrate it with cameras like I'm shooting on now, which is a Canon PTZ. We're using the XC protocol to do the sort of remote control moves. Now you could integrate that as well with the C50. Obviously not the PTZ part of it, but in terms of the color and exposure and those aspects. Plenty of ways to rig it up or rig it down or to quickly shoot some photos. So a really nice addition here. It's very video focused. As you see, we'll take a look at the spec sheet. There's like tons of video specs and then there's a tiny little page of photo specs. So it's really meant to sit in the line of the C400 and the C80, and now the C50 is what is there for comparison. All right, let's take a look at, where are we? This one. So we've had that's a bit of an overview of what it looks like. Now let's take a look more in depth of the video specs of the C50. And I'm going to jump over to here. just so we can get some high-res pictures and get an idea of what the body looks like. Down here I have the R5C just for comparison, which is rigged up here. So just keep that one down there. All right, from the front we've got a RF mount, which looks like it can be taken off. I don't know if that means you could put a PL or something else on there, but a few more capabilities there, I would say. And there's a tally lamp. Record button with the red one means that it is, oh, I just noticed the T&W here. So it's also, as well as having the iris control on this dial here and the stop start, it's also got a zooming function here. So I think that would probably tie into the zoom lenses, that's really cool. I hadn't noticed that just until now. Here's the side port, and I don't think, probably we'll have an open one later on, but we've got timecode, USB, a full-size HDMI, a remote tether here, and microphone and headphones. And it looks like a third side of, I'm assuming it's a 1/4-20, maybe it's 3/8 thread here, so that you could have three sides of this, like the top and the bottom and a side mounted into cage, which if you're rigging this up into car rigs and stuff like that, you probably want to have that really solid. So I think that's a great anchor point in there, and it also reduces the need for a cage, which always adds on not just weight and bulk, but also complexity. It's just another item that you have to have in your kit, and to make another purchasing decision about what's going to integrate well with accessories and to build it out in certain ways. Four sides, sorry, forgot this one. So on this side too, it looks like it's got an anchor point here as well. So you could get a really solid anchor down here. Lights for CFast Express, SD, and a dual card slot. From the top, again, more points to, this is for the top handle to anchor into. We've got a photo and video mode, much like the R5C has with that switch between them, so you'd be in totally different operating systems. You've got the jog wheels on top and around here for, you can probably set it to like ISO and all that kind of stuff. Different record buttons, lock, peaking, waveform. Really nice layout of the buttons here. I like what I'm seeing here. I'm not sure if this is compatible with flashes. I assume it would be, but it doesn't look like this has the same number of same contacts as the R5C has more sort of metallic contacts in here. So I don't know if that's just a cover or if it means that it's not actually capable for a flash, but we shall see. All right, we've got the rear side here. And so this is the fold out screen. The dials on the back, which are, again, are quite similar to the R5C's buttons down here in terms of the dials and having a flip out screen, and also a little bit of a bulge. It looks like it might have been reduced a little bit in terms of the fan that's in the back here. But otherwise similar with the joystick and display menu, magnification, AF on. So the buttons have been moved around a bit, but still kind of similar there. On the bottom, it almost looks like one thread here. Excuse me. I wasn't sure if this is not an actual anchor point. It could be just something so that it doesn't slide around. And the battery compartment, which may or may not come off. On the R5C, you can actually take off the whole battery thing to add in one of these sort of photo grips. So you can, this whole panel will come off, and then you can turn it into a, a fuller size DSLR style. Put that one over there. The top handle, I love this because I've been really missing this. Tascam, when the R5C was released, Tascam released this CA XLR 2D which was meant to be kind of the answer to getting XLR into it. I think there was some, I don't know what you call them, like preamps or something in there that were very sensitive and were prone to blowing out with phantom power if it wasn't put together in the right order. I had to send this one in to get repaired at a cost of around about $180 for labor, I think, which for a $400 device is kind of half the cost of it. And I've never trusted it, because after a shoot or two where there was some sort of faint electronic background noise, I just was like, I'm not going to run with this, which was disappointing, because there's some shoots that I do where it's just a really simple little interview and I just need to get a micro lav into the camera and I don't want to have a whole other mixer. So that was meant to be the solution. In the end, I ended up going, which I can show you a bit more later on, rigging up a Mix Pre 3 on the bottom. And so that gets me really great 32-bit float audio and just a ton of capability and time code and all that kind of stuff, but it's a bit more to rig up and a bit more of a beast. So that also meant that even if I was doing a one camera shoot, I was probably bringing two cameras, because I'd have one rigged up for audio and then another one sort of rigged up for B-roll, just so I could switch between them quickly. So this top handle is amazing here. It's got these screws which look low profile and easy to get on and off without any tools. Looks like, I think there's enough space in there for a hand if you've got a big hand. Nice, easy having a top handle. Having a top handle on a camera just, it saves a lot of fatigue over a shoot. So I've got a top handle on this one which has a cage, and it's just being able to grab it like that when you're in between shots, even if you're not shooting this way. It just saves a lot of energy throughout the day. If you're always having to hold a camera like this, and then in your downtime it's hanging off your wrist, it's just a lot more stress on your wrist throughout the day. So having a top handle is great, and this looks like a really neat, tidy little XLR bundle here, not too fat, like this one, for example, this Tascam one. It's just, there's a lot of space here that didn't need to be there, and so I feel like this has got a nice low profile one. I'm assuming, they haven't shown it here, but I'm hoping it comes with a microphone mount, like a shock mount up here that you could screw on there, and then there's another shoe, I'm not sure if that's hot or cold, which could be for a light or something. So you could have a really good ENG run and gun type setup here. The other side of it with a, not sure what lens that is, looks like a Z lens or one of the VCM ones. And then we're back to the front. All right, so let's take a look at the video specs. We've sort of just been around the camera there to have a look at the external, which is always nice to see that, but we're going to take a look at the specs and the price. So the price is $3,899, which I think is a great price. I think you're getting a lot of video camera there for something under $4,000. So I was actually expecting it to be more like 4.5 or something. I can't remember now. The R5C when it launched was, I think 4.5, maybe 4.8. I don't know. I think it was about 4.5. So prices have come down, and I don't know, given the whole tariffs and all that kind of stuff, this seems like an actual pretty good price to deliver on. November 24 is when it looks like it is coming out. It says it has a new 7K full frame CMOS sensor, and you can do this open gate in 3:2 mode. So sensor being 3:2, you can either take a 16:9 crop for regular video, or I guess DCI as well, or else you can do record the full frame, which means it gives you a bit more height if you're doing a vertical video version of that. Let's take a look at the quick specs here. Dual base ISO. I think it's got a higher value than the R5C, I think, which is 6400, I think, or maybe it's 32, I can't remember actually. 7K 60p internal raw recording, 4K 120p frame rate recording. So this is not an 8K camera, which the R5C is an 8K camera. It's depending on what you shoot. Majority of what I'm shooting with this is just 4K. When you shoot 8K, there's a ton of data, and having to manage that data both on set and also archiving it and processing it just is sort of the hidden cost of upping your resolution. So there's a lot of things, particularly if you're delivering on the web, that don't actually really need 8K. So most of what I shoot would be in 4K, and then there's times where I'm doing sort of like high-end properties, or like I was shooting Billionaire's Row here in New York and had to shoot 8K because we got, need a lot of detail in these videos are going to appear on big screens, that kind of stuff. Dual pixel CMOS AF2, so it's going to have good auto focusing, eye tracking on it, a new light compact body design, detachable handle, built-in XLR, record and zoom control. Yeah, I love this. That's a real neat little zoom control. I didn't actually notice it there. I wonder what it'd be like to use, like if you can, it's a bit of a dicky control, but like it's not like a rocker wheel. So hopefully it can be adjusted so that it's a sort of smooth zoom rather than just like reframing. It's got a bit more connectivity, which I'm interested to dive into over the next little while. So Frame.io, camera to cloud integration, and I've noticed elsewhere that there's XC protocol, which is what these Canon PTZ cameras that I'm shooting on at the moment, in terms of like this shot and this shot, Canon PTZs use Canon's proprietary XC protocol to control exposure, but also for PTZs, the pan, tilt, and zoom. So I assume with if you had a zoom lens on the C50, then you could probably over the XC protocol control the zoom. Manually, you'd have to pan and tilt. In the box, here we go. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so we get the body, we get the handle unit, which is good. I mean, I guess the C200 and all those had the handles in them. I feel like there's sometimes where the accessories aren't in there, so that's nice. Microphone holder unit, excellent. I was wondering about that. Screw for microphone holder unit, M4 screw. Battery charge. I wish, the only thing with these ones is like the M4s, that's where you start to have a tool on set, and it'd be nice to have something that can be unscrewed by hand and also has washers that keep it there, so you're not hunting for the right size Allen key. Battery charger LC E6, and the battery pack LP E6P. It was funny because I just went out and bought, before the E6P version launched, I just went out and bought like, I don't know, 10 of these, what are they, LP E6NH batteries, and they're like $80 each, so it's not, that's a lot of money when you start buying 10 of them. It's like $800. And really you're gonna need the E6P batteries to run this camera. I think if you're using the older batteries like the NH ones, it's not gonna be able to power the lens, like in terms of image stabilization or zooming the lens, so it'll just be running the camera. I use the R5C often in a power saving mode, which can still shoot 4K, and it just means that the battery gets a lot longer. But the problem that was happening with these batteries was that they would get down about 50% capacity, and then there wasn't enough to run the video mode, and so you had very short operation and recording times, and then you could flick over to photo and you keep shooting. So you had all this half a battery that you couldn't use in video mode, whereas I think the E6P gets around that, and you get a shoulder strap. All right, RF mount. I'll just sort of jump through these a little more. What have we got? Lens. So we can have RF, EF with a an adapter and a PL lens. So I'm not sure if that means replacing it or a mount adapter, PL to RF. But I assume that you can unscrew that mount. It looks like there's screws on that are accessible. Full frame CMOS sensor, 34 megapixels, so not as much as the R5C, which has 45 megapixels. I don't think it's a huge concern. I mean, unless you really need to shoot and deliver in 8K, it's not a problem. I mean, the main thing for me in terms of weighing up, will I buy this or not, is like, does that mean then I've got these like different types of cameras, you know, like, I mean, at least they're all full frame, but I'd have some that can shoot 8K and some that can't. But we'll get to the photography aspect of this, which is probably more a concern for me. These are all the sensor modes here, Super 16, Super 35. So there's different modes that you can crop into the sensor for different frame, like sensor sizes. The sensor is 3x2, so this is the open gate thing in terms of shooting with the full sensor. So if you imagine like this being the full, where are we? Down here, trying to demonstrate with, there we go. That's the full sensor, and then if you go 16:9, it would like crop this section, or if you go 9:16, you know, you could crop it to this. So there's this like headroom here, ooh, there we go, that you would otherwise not be able to use if you were just shooting 16:9. All right, just gonna skip through some of this. 3-inch screen on the back. I'm curious about this, which is the Ethernet, which I'm assuming is through a USB adapter. Specifications of the Ethernet adapter. I'm gonna have to try and find this. I don't know if this is like a Canon only, or if you could just get any third party off Amazon USB to Ethernet adapter to get Ethernet into the camera. But it's interesting having a USB-C port on there because there's really a wide range of things you could do that in terms of, you know, you can have video out of there, you can have audio out, you can have network control, you have streaming over it. So it's, you know, be interesting to know what you can actually do with that. Wi-Fi, we'll see. I feel like reliable Wi-Fi should have happened a long time ago, and I've never found it fully reliable in these cameras. And it's always a bit of a, I just never end up using it on set because it just doesn't, it sort of drops out, or like if you leave it a while, then you have to reconnect it, and then you're there trying to like reconnect Wi-Fi. And so I've never found it totally rock solid. Compression, H.264 or AVC, audio, this is all pretty self-explanatory. IP streaming, so you can go over Ethernet or Wi-Fi, and has the XC protocol. Also you can access over the Canon app or CV, which I haven't actually looked into that, virtual productions, and Frame.io in terms of uploading clips to the camera's Frame.io camera to cloud function. So I'm assuming that that would mean if you're in a probably more of a studio environment rather than out on the field, but if you're in a studio environment, you could have the camera tethered over Wi-Fi so that as you're shooting, it's uploading in the background. That's what I'm assuming, but maybe not. Oh, okay, here we go, verified Ethernet adapters. So you could get a StarTech, here we go. What do we got? Well, can't be that one because it's a USB-A. But it looks like maybe this one. Yeah, it looks like it should be pretty easy to get a sort of third-party USB to Ethernet. And then the question is, are there other adapters that you can use which would have more functionality in it in terms of, I mean, maybe not USB for external recording, but at least like power in, so that you could have one USB cable going to a camera and you're having your network and power control. So it's sort of, I mean, essentially PoE is kind of what that would be kind of like. We'll get to that in a sec. Okay, so there's a U-green. These ones have been verified. Oh, nice. Okay. I'm assuming this is the right one. So it looks like you could use just like a more standard hub. You can get ones which, I don't know where it is or what it's called. I quite like hubs where they don't have this dedicated tether, and one that you can actually put in your own cable, because then you can put in a 5-foot cable and just get the bulk of this out of the way. So I'll be curious to see what these adapters can do. Mic terminal. So what do we got? Probably pretty regular sort of XLR in, and you can probably put it across to or out. The HDMI out, thankfully, they have this. The R5C, which I've never yet had a problem with, but I feel like it's just a matter of time before something does happen, has a, that's the wrong port. Let me get this one. It has a micro HDMI out. So, it's not a problem in terms of getting a cable. It goes from micro to HDMI to sort of get an external monitor, but it's just so fragile. So I'm, these are not cameras that I rent out, because I feel like that would break in a very short amount of time. USB terminal, Type-C jack. Okay, so you can get USB, like a UVC or UAC, like USB audio or USB video, out of the camera. In camera charging and power supply with USB power adapter, PD E2. Does anyone actually use these? I feel like these are like $60 giant Canon ones. Right. I mean, so you can spend okay, you can spend $190 to buy this USB adapter, which is probably exactly the right specs, R5 Mark II. But really, who does that? The good thing about USB-C is that, you really want to grab a laptop charger, like your Apple laptop charger, and plug it in, and it works. So, I don't know, that's a lot. Timecode. I love this. Timecode in just means multi-camera is possible, and syncing to external audio is great. Battery terminal, still just a 7.2 volt battery pack. Ton of lenses that you can connect to. What are these? Compatible batteries. Does not operate EF lenses in with the battery, really. It's going to keep on going down here. Sensor mode, media overview. Okay, so it's got a SD card and a CFast slot, much like the R5C does. And these are the stats here. Second card, you can either record a proxy or a relay recording, depending on what you're shooting. Slow and fast motion still has that. Configurable frame rates up to 5994. And just, there's a lot of specs in here. We can get lost in all of this. There's a ton of video specs on this camera, and then we'll come to the photo specs, and it's pretty short. Focusing systems, dual pixel AF, so all that stuff that we would expect from cameras already. Exposure control, shutter, custom picture, and then photo, and that's it. So I'll jump on to the second part here, which is talking about the photo side of the C50. Because remember, this is a camera that's really designed primarily for video shooters, but it does have great quality photography capabilities in it. It probably just doesn't quite have some of the ergonomics that you're used to. And I think it's quite telling, showing that I went through like a very long document of video specs, and then there's one page for photos. So let me see what we have here. can jump onto that. Okay, so back over to this one. So this is the actual spec sheet, and you'll see down, this is my little, where are we? Wheel to, okay, so this is all the video specs. And then the last page is photo. So just bear that in mind when you get this camera, that this camera is really targeting video people who want to be able to also shoot photos, but it probably doesn't have the same ergonomics. So photo has, I'm sure these will be great quality images. You know, you can shoot RAW, 32 megapixels, which is 6,960 pixels in a sort of 3:2 format. So that's really what you're going to be shooting at, and then you can have high-speed continuous shooting at up to 40 shots a second, which is pretty cool. Low-speed continuous 5 shots, and then all the other stuff. So I don't think there's much to say about the photos other than there's one page of specs, and the photos will be great. What could be more of a challenge is, let me come in here, is the fact that it doesn't have a viewfinder. So if I jump back over to, where did my guy go? I'll try and get a better shot for you from behind. Here we go. Let's take a look at this one. So there's no, it's just the flip out screen. So you'd be able to flip this around. It's probably a generational thing. I've noticed that a lot of younger folk, they're shooting like this. I can do it this way. So they're kind of, there's about a foot between them, and they're looking at the screen, and that's how they shoot. You know, they're, which is, I don't know, it's fine. It's probably feels more like video. With video, I'm used to more like, you know, you're looking down at something, you're managing other things. Photography, I like it's like more, if you can look into the viewfinder, you're fully immersed. And there's a couple of things here. One is, I'm just sort of used to shooting photos that way. I don't think I ever, other than if I'm doing a Hail Mary trying to get over the top of someone, I'm probably not, I'm not like shooting with the screen out. I actually often keep this closed just to sort of protect it, and I'm just shooting more, I don't want to say old school, but just like through the viewfinder, whereas this one, unless they make some sort of pop-on accessory for it where you could have a little viewfinder that plugs into the shoe there, then you're not going to have it. And I don't think you want to have another accessory to add on it. The point is that this camera is small and you don't have to add a whole lot of things to it. So if you're a photographer who really needs to shoot like this, then you know, you might want to, I don't think this is your primary camera. Maybe it's a secondary camera that you have when you need to do video work. And then the fact that it can shoot photos is handy if you're on the fly. That'd be my main consideration in the for the photos, but it does, on the other hand, it saves a lot of real estate, you know, like not having to have this big old viewfinder in there. From a video point of view, I do actually still use the viewfinder sometimes, more for like B-roll outdoors. So, you know, if you're shooting an interview inside, you definitely want to have a screen because you're monitoring audio and you're looking at a person and you're asking questions and stuff like that. So you need to be a bit more outside of the camera. You can't be like interviewing someone like this. But to shoot B-roll outside, it can be handy also from a stabilization point of view to have another anchor point of like your eye or your forehead. So you've got you know, two hands maybe on the lens. So you've got your 3 points of contact, and that can be a really nice handheld style as well, which is it's not shaky. You know, you're getting rid of the roll out of it. Like sometimes when you're just holding with two hands, it can have like you can be fighting the forwards and backwards, and so you're trying to balance that, but you still have a bit of roll across there. So having it on a third point of contact just like really anchors that down. but still has that handheld freedom in it. So I think this is where, for me, this camera, I would get it if I was just using it primarily as a video camera. But I don't think it replaces the R5C's photography side of that. I don't think I could, like, if I'm doing a shoot where I'm primarily photographing and I need to have two cameras, I'm going to be setting up the primary camera with a battery grip, just so I can do verticals much easier and just is a bit more to grab. And then my secondary camera is just going to have like no battery grip on there, just because it's smaller and easier to carry, and it's got a second lens on it. So that's how I set up for photo shooting. This would be great for getting rid of a cage, because cages always get a little, you know, so this is I've got two cages, which I can show you in a bit, but you know, you do have to spend a minute kind of rigging it up. So depending on the shoot that I'm doing, sort of changes what I'm using it with. All right, let's go to part 3, our final part. I'm looking at the comparison really with the R5C, but we can take a look at some other cameras as well in terms of audio rigging, HDMI out, and that kind of stuff, because I think it is most similar to the R5C, and we can just see how that compares, because you kind of got this weird spot between like the R5 and R5 Mark II, the R5C, and then the C50. So the C50 is now moving away from the photography and is getting more into the cinema world. You know, it's going up towards the C80, C400. So that's, you're definitely on the cinema spectrum here, almost rather than hybrid. Even though it shoots photos, I would say it's really a video camera. Again, look at that spec sheet. It's like 90 pages of video, and then there's one of video specs. Partly because there's just a lot more to video. You know, you got to deal with frames over time. You've got to deal with audio, all that kind of stuff. All right, so I'll just run through a couple of things that I have noticed in comparing the C50 to the R5C. One is that the viewfinder is missing. So on the R5C, this is what you will see in terms of actually having a viewfinder that you can look into, rather than just the flip out screen. So on the C50, you're going to be, like I was showing you before, you're going to be much more like a compact mirrorless almost, with just a LCD screen. So, you know, if you're a photographer who needs that, bear that in mind. The audio mount, I think this is amazing. And like I was saying before, this Tascam unit that I paid upwards of $400 for, and then hated it, partly because I just found it unreliable. It also takes a fair amount of energy from the camera and sort of cut out some internal recording functions when you're running that off the internal battery. And there's also just not that many controls on it in terms of the menu. And one of the biggest things was it knocked out a top handle, really. So you've got a hot shoe here on the R5C. And so once you've put in your unit here, it's really, you can record audio into it, but now you can't really rig how do you carry the camera? You know, you have to hold it like this, and it's just a lot more fragile. You can't grab this because it's not a properly anchored piece of hardware. It's just like a, you know, shoe mount thing. So this was a huge fail for me, partly because it just cost a lot of money to get it fixed. And also I've just never liked the integration with it and the lack of the top handle. So that is where having a top handle is amazing. And this looks like a really neat little handle here in terms of these two screws to securely anchor it down, but also to easily be able to detach it. So if you're going between an interview setup with audio and then you want to put the camera on a gimbal, it's not a whole it's not a whole thing. And also, I mean, think about back in the days of the C200, which I still have and I need to sell if anyone wants to buy it, was you had a top handle which would screw in, but then the audio unit in the handle was another cable that was coming out and had to be plugged in. So there's always additional cables. And I mean, you'll see that this one's not even, this is my main sort of shooting unit at the moment. And this doesn't even have all the cables on it that I would normally have on it. But, you know, it becomes, there's just, you know, there becomes a pouch that you need, which is, I think I've got it over here. See if I can get that. This is my R5C pouch. And it's just, there's a whole bunch of HDMI micro to full size and USB-C to C for power and the time code and some 3.5 mil stereo audio jacks to kind of get a reference audio in. So it becomes like a whole thing. And so this is a much neater way of handling it. You know, it's the design that's been around for years. Like I used to shoot many years ago on the Sony Z1 or something like that. I can't remember now. And it's this kind of thing of like a top handle and an audio unit at the top and a microphone on top, you know. So it's not a new design, but I think that sort of like mirrorless compact body being able to grow into something bigger is really interesting. Let's talk about the battery and an external mount. That'll be interesting to see. I'll be interesting to see what battery mounting options are available for this camera. So given that these new batteries, I mean, there's still these little LP E6P batteries, which I think in 4K you probably get over 100 minutes, maybe. But I would imagine for a day's shooting, you probably still want to rig up maybe some sort of battery. It'd be interesting to see how long that lasts for. That's probably my main concern, and one of my main concerns with the R5C was always just being able to run it off USB power down here, which is, again, I've never had a problem with it other than there were some times that if you hadn't set the USB mode in the settings correctly, it was like GP2 or something, then you plug in a V-mount battery and it would actually sort of read it as an Android system or something like this. Anyway, there were times where I would have a battery USB-C into the camera and all of the menu options would gray out. So I couldn't actually hit record or anything. And I had to unplug the power to get the menu back to start recording. So there were some weird quirks with that, which is where I kind of wish there was like a different powering option for this camera. It is nice having a dedicated battery in there so that if you are hot swapping things, the camera doesn't go down, it stays on. So I like the fact that you can have a battery in here and then also, you know, plug in external power. I just kind of wish there was a power option that didn't involve USB-C, or if it was USB-C, that it had a bit more of a anchored port that would be screwed in so that if your cable is like more tethered and not putting the pressure on the port itself. HDMI out now, this is full size. It's still not SDI, which is okay. I think for a body this size, this timecode port over here is a kind of BNC connection. So, you know, I wonder if you could almost get like a micro SDI out. It is handy on bigger cameras to have an HDMI and an SDI so that you could have, for example, local monitoring on HDMI with menus that you can make changes on and then have a SDI out port that is just like sending a feed to, you know, out to a live stream or something like that. But these are probably bigger cameras that we have that we can take a look at. So, you know, if you want to step up, you can have the C80, which is, again, a similar sort of design, sort of like a 1D body here, like just something much bigger. I don't even know if this has input 1, 2, mic, remote. I think even this one has, oh no, it has SDI out here. So, you know, if you go up to a C80, you're going to have a 6K full frame sensor, but you're going to have SDI out and HDMI. So it's just much better monitoring. But, you know, it's also, well, it's not that much more, I guess, 5,500 for that camera. And then this is more for like bigger rigs, you know, people who are shooting with bigger sets. The C50 is probably designed more towards either a high-end content creator or a professional set that needs a really small body that could be put on a drone or a gimbal or a crash cam or something. So, and then you go to the C400, 6K full frame, and it's got, you know, a ton more options on here. So just a lot more going on. There's Ethernet ports and remote ports. You can hold, you know, it's a bigger camera. You can hold bigger lenses more easily. I mean, you can put these lenses on the C50 as well, but it's, you know, it's just a much bigger camera to rig. And there was a time where I looked at getting this. I was like, maybe I will get a C400. I had a C200. As I said, I still have a C200, which really only comes out when I'm doing a multicam shoot and I need to, you know, have 4, 5, 6 cameras. That'll be one of the cameras. But I really need to sell that off, and I need to sell off my EF glass because I've still got a whole bunch of EF glass and I just want to move over to the RF glass that I've got down here. And I don't know, I feel like at the moment my days of bigger cameras are behind me. It's more to store and to carry. It requires more crew. So the C50 is much more nimble with a smaller crew. You know, I mean, there's room for both of these cameras depending on what you're shooting. But they're the two sort of stepping up into the R5, sorry, the C80 and the C400 would be the next ones up from the C50. And then the R5 Mark II, here we are, which is exactly the same price. Interesting. So that'll be a comparison, wouldn't it? Originally 4,300 when this has come out, and now it is price-wise competing head-to-head with the R5, sorry, the C50. This is going to be a much more photography-focused body. So you can shoot 8K 60 RAW. So, you know, technically your video is going to be higher quality, you know, higher resolution out of this. But it doesn't have, where are we? It doesn't have time code, right? There's no time code in, so we're not talking about, you know, frames over time. We're talking about photography, still images. So, and I think it has a full HDMI. I don't know where that port went. I'm trying to find the ports. I'm pretty sure it has a full HDMI one on there. I will say the shooting with the R5C. Years ago I bought the R5 version 1. I had it about a month and then I returned it because this R5C was announced. And so having shot with both of them, the fan on the back of the R5C is chunky and big when you hold the two in terms of the R5 and the R5C in your hands. That said, I got used to it pretty quick and I don't feel like it got in the way of shooting. But it did mean that, like, when I'm going on vacation, this is just like, I mean, not this audio unit, and really not the, I've got a cage on this as well, but it's still a lot of camera. And now that I've got 2 kids, you know, baby things go in the bag. And so I got this camera, or I should say my wife kindly got it for my birthday, which is the R8. And so you'll just notice the body size here is much, much smaller. I still got a kind of chunky lens. So the, you know, I mean, that's so light. That's very nice and light. But then I wanted a lens that wasn't, let me just go down here. What have I got? 20, it's on this one. So the one I often go to is a 24 to 70 RF, and then I bought the 28 to 70. So you'll see that, where are we? Size comparison there. Also the weight, like this is much heavier. So this still kind of like sticks out a bit, but for me it was a lens that I could take on vacation, or just like one that I actually carry around town. Like, you know, if I'm going to the park with my kids and I want to have a camera in the bag that doesn't take up the whole bag and just like very weighty on my shoulders, then that's where this lens is like half the weight, a little bit smaller, and it means that this is a camera. I mean, it's also like, what's that, like 1,300 and 1,100, so you're like 2,000 to 2,500, say, for this camera, as opposed to the R5C, which is, you know, more like $5,000 to $6,000 of camera that you're carrying around. So even though this does a 24 megapixel sensor, it's fine for what I'm shooting with kids and stuff like that. And it just, for me, it was a nice trade-off of having something that I would actually carry and actually use for personal things versus a big R5C that's, yeah, it's going to give me 45 megapixel photos, but like, you know, if I don't want to carry it, then I'm not going to take it. So it was a good middle ground between trying to get away from the iPhone and just like shooting every moment on an iPhone, which is handy, but there's a really big difference between, as amazing as the iPhone is with its, and I think that's launching today too, isn't it? With its computational photography, the old school cameras still have like bigger sensors, you know, a much clearer depth of field rather than this like portrait mode that crops hair out weirdly. So still some way to go there. All right, so let me have a look here. I think that's about it. Was there anything else I had to show you? I think that's about it. Hopefully that helps with just, if you are in the market trying to choose between an R5 Mark II or an R5C, like I've got here. Actually, no, I had a few more things. Sorry. Where are we? Okay, cage free. There we go. A few other points about the R5C. It's cage, well, I mean, you probably end up putting a cage on it, but the R5C has one screw on the bottom, and then I've got this small rig cage. I've got two different cages. I've got a half cage for this B cam because it means that I can put this onto a gimbal very easily without it being too heavy. But then the cage, if I keep the cage on, it means that this plate that I've kind of designed here, this is a small rig half cage, and this is a tilter V-mount thing. And it means that I can put on a V-mount battery on the side, and then I've got a USB-C cable, just a short one, in my pouch. Remember I said I have an R5C pouch. And so I got these, I think they're like 6-inch USB cables, and I got it in red just so that it would stand out away from the, you know, everything else being black. Where are we? So I'll try and turn this around. So this would go in here, and this one goes in there. And then that is, you know, this is a 50 watt, but I have 100 watt ones as well, or 90, whatever. And so this will just go all day. Like I can, you know, if I'm doing long interviews, I can chuck this on a tripod, and I don't have to worry about switching out batteries. So not having to think about card space, which I don't think anyone does anymore. There's usually, unless you're shooting full on RAW for long slabs, which I wouldn't recommend, then I don't think we really have to worry about card space these days. It's probably more batteries and trying to like have batteries that aren't too big, but that you don't have to change so frequently that they're so small. So that's that rig. And just click over here, cage free. So then the other aspect of the cage is that this is my main shooting rig, like I was showing you before. So I've got a full-size cage around the R5C, and then I've got the Mix Pre 3 attached to the bottom of that, and then the tripod plate. So that sits like that. But then, and I have a Sennheiser, I don't know what it is, XDP, something or other, receiver here for a wireless mic, and then that's coming in XLR in the bottom there. But then on top of that, I have a timecode box, like a Deity timecode box, which doesn't have a cable at the moment. But that's nice because that'll go straight into the timecode slot here. And then because I run the battery on the same power source, I have to have a, what do you call it, a ground loop isolator. So when I've got this battery on here, it has USB, this is the, what do you call them? FX Lion Nano 1 or 2 is what I've got. So it's got a USB-C, which goes into the camera, and then there's a USB-A, which I have a cable, not in this pouch, of USB-A to C, which is what I actually run the Mix Pre 3 on, just because it's like, avoids me having to manage another battery on here in terms of, you know, the front of this thing. The problem with that is when I put the audio from the Mix Pre 3 into the R5C for a reference track, it has a ton of like loop noise in it, like that kind of stuff. So I have to get this $10 Orky ground loop isolator to put in between the Mix Pre 3 and the R5C, which is not hard, but it's just like, that's what I'm saying about it becomes like another 2 cables and a device that I've got to like Velcro to this thing, and it becomes a bit more unwieldy. And then I have, using the D tap on the battery will power the monitor, and then the monitor has power out to the Teradek, and the Teradek will send a wireless signal. So I can go micro HDMI from the camera into the field. I've got a field world monitor here. It's got SDI, but I can do HDMI as well, and I can loop out the HDMI into the Teradek and get video out wirelessly that way. So that's kind of the primary rig for my shooting. But it is a bit of a, it's a bit. So I think maybe at some point C50 could be an interesting camera about like staying small. So the other one that I quite like is that this has the XC protocol in the C50, so I'm interested to explore that, and remote control, because I do a lot of that on this channel in terms of live streaming and controlling multiple cameras at once, usually through the PTZ ones. And then the price comparison I think is good. I think they've priced aggressively. It's probably priced towards the what am I saying, FX3, is that right? FX3. I'm not totally up to speed with the Sonys, but from what I gather, it's trying to compete with this Sony FX3, which has been very popular, and you know, $4,000 and 100, I would say Canon is like coming after that market with a 3899 is perfect pricing. You know, often like 800 is a good price point when you're trying to come in below the next 1,000. So the 3899, it sounds like $3,000, and then like what's the rest of the other $899? And does the Sony come with? Not that one. Does it come with a top handle? Yes, I think it does. I don't think you have to buy that separately. This is an interesting top handle. I think that's I quite like that little more open design. So yeah, I would almost in a way find that design more compelling, but this is, you know, the same sort of thing of a hot shoe with electronics coming up to the microphone rather than cables. No, wait, it is, oh no, there's the microphone cable. So that's what they're competing with there. So I think price-wise, it is very, very good. All right, that's all I have for today. That was my comparison of the C50 versus the R5C. Let me know in the comments what you think. Are you going to go get a C50? Does it work for you? Do the photography side of things work for you if you're sort of a hybrid shooter? We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, take care, and I'll see you then. Bye.